part one, the European half of my project, I'll be providing a geographical overview of Serbia. First, a brief history of modern-day Serbia. So from the Battle of Kosovo until 1878, Serbia was part of the Ottoman Empire. There were Serbian uprisings in 1813 and 1815 that led to the Ottoman Empire granting them independence in 1878. So from 1878 until 1882, Serbia was kind of hanging in the balance between being controlled by the Ottoman Empire and being their own independent state. But in 1882, they became an official kingdom led by King Milan Obrenović. They lasted in this system until World War I, when they became a part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia. They were part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia until they were occupied by Axis powers during World War II. During this Axis power occupation, Josip Tito formed communist resistance powers, and after World War II, he became in control of Serbia with his communist regime, as a part of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. This lasted until 1990 during the Yugoslav War, when Serbs pursued nationalism and ultimately their independence under President Milosevic. They exited the Yugoslav War in 2003, unionized with Montenegro. From 2003 to 2006, they were unionized with Montenegro, but in 2006, they granted Montenegro independence, and they were left as what we know of Serbia today. Some political geography of Serbia. So, Serbia's borders have been the same since 2003 when Montenegro became independent. This left Serbia landlocked, as their only coast was on the Adriatic Sea with Montenegro. Serbia is a compact state, and it's larger than its neighbors to the south and the west, but it's considerably smaller than its eastern neighbors. It's divided into 3 autonomous regions. Serbia has a parliamentary republic that has been in place since '03 when Montenegro became independent. This republic is completely dominated by a party known as the Serbian Progressive Party, which has 104 of 250 National Assembly seats, as well as the presidency. Alexander Vučić is the president, and he's part of the Serbian Progressive Party. And therefore, Milos Vučević has lots of power because he is the Serbian Progressive Party's leader. Serbia applied to join the European Union in 2009 and has been a candidate for entry since 2012, but they are still not a part of the EU. Some physical geography of Serbia. So, the location of Serbia is that it's in the center of the northern portion of the Balkan Peninsula, which is in southeastern Europe. Its exact coordinates are listed there. The climate of Serbia is mainly split into 2 parts. The northern 60% of Serbia is flat, arid, and cold, whereas the southern 40% is a lot more mountainous, more forested, and it's a lot warmer and more humid. Some important landmarks in Serbia would be Midzor, which is the highest peak in Serbia. It's in southern Serbia, and it's 7,100 feet tall. The capital city of Belgrade is located where it is, as there's a confluence of the Sava and Danube rivers. Belgrade has the highest population of any city in Serbia. The Belgrade Fortress is the most famous landmark in Serbia, and it has over 2 million visitors each year. Some human geography of Serbia. So Serbia has a free market economy, and it's mainly focused on energy and automotive industry. They export a lot of cars and other industrial metal products. Their economy has been steadily growing since 2000, and they now have a GDP per capita of about $24,000. Serbia is very trade focused, and they are a major trader with Germany. As far as culture goes, almost all Serbs speak the language known as Srpski, which is the national language. 85% of Serbs are Serbian Orthodox Christians. As far as pop culture, music, film, and fashion, most of the Balkan Peninsula shares these aspects, and so Serbia shares music, film, and fashion with most of their neighbors. Agriculturally, Serbia is very strong. They are the world leader of organic non-GMO corn and raspberry production, and because of this, 41.4% of their total land area is completely devoted to agriculture. So this is a population pyramid of Serbia, and there are no concerns with the gender ratio of Serbia. It's a pretty even male and female distribution. But there's a concerning lack of population growth, and it's a problem, the age distribution in Serbia. There are a lot less young people than there are people in their 40s, 50s, and even 60s, which is a big problem because in 15 to 25 years, they'll have a very high dependency ratio, meaning a few working age individuals will have to support a large number of elderly, retired individuals. This would be a problem for any country, but it's especially concerning for Serbia because their economy is so industry heavy and therefore labor intensive, and so these older people will not be able to continue working, and these younger people are going to have to support them. So three important sites that you would visit if you got to go to Serbia. So the Belgrade Fortress sits atop a ridge that overlooks the city of Belgrade and the river confluence that I was talking about earlier. This has been around since 259 BC and has been used in 9 battles until it was memorialized in 1806. It offers tours that explain the military history, and being on top of that ridge has a beautiful lookout of the city and the rivers. I would also visit the Tara Mountains. These are in southwest Serbia, and they have hiking trails that have peaks, valleys, lakes, and also much of the Serbian wildlife lives in the mountainous regions of Serbia because, as I mentioned before, the northern portion is very arid, dry, and cold, so there's not much wildlife there. So to see wildlife in Serbia, you would visit somewhere such as the Tara Mountains. Also, the Saint Sava Temple. This is a temple that is a part of the Serbian Orthodox Church that I was talking about earlier. It was opened in 1935. It's atop a plateau in Belgrade, and it has thousands of stained glass and painted displays, as well as gorgeous architecture. And so it would be a very important place to see if you were to ever visit Serbia. A current event that's going on in Serbia are lots of political protests and accusations of election fraud. So in the capital of Belgrade, thousands of protesters gathered in late 2023 because Alexander Vučić got reelected again. So Vučić is part of the Serbian Progressive Party, and all of these protesters believe that that party is fraudulently representing the votes, and so they're demanding that the results be annulled and looked at again and made public. The Serbian Progressive Party has been dominant over all other political parties in Serbia for so long that more and more Serbians and even political researchers from places other than Serbia are suspecting that they are fraudulently counting the votes in order to stay in power in Serbia. So as a result of this, leaders of all of the other political parties in Serbia are starting to consolidate their efforts and join parties and actually blend their parties together in preparation of the next election cycle, hoping that they can maybe take power from the Serbian Progressive Party for the first time in many, many years. So on to part 2 of my presentation, I'll be giving an overview of Malawi. So brief history of Malawi. Before colonialism, Malawi was home mostly to Bantu tribes. The Chiwa and Nyanja tribes were the most prominent and advanced agriculturally and economically. So Malawi was then colonized by Britain in 1891 and made a protectorate known as Nyasa land. Malawi was very easily exploited as all of the people there were separate and in these separate tribes, and so they could not properly defend themselves and join efforts against the British colonizers. And the British specifically wanted to colonize Malawi and make it a protectorate because it would be a very helpful location for slave trade and ivory trades. A plantation system was created in the protectorate of Nyasaland. Human rights were abused, and Christianity was not only introduced but enforced. And it stood this way until 1964, when Hastings Banda led an independence movement and gained independence from Britain. He was then the dictator of Malawi for the first 3 decades, but this wasn't necessarily a huge improvement for the human rights, as Banda was known to practice a very authoritarian type of leadership, and human rights were still abused widely. So his rule came to an end in 1994, and Malawi held their first democratic election after many, many years of unrest as people were growing impatient with Banda's political, like how he executed his power, as it wasn't much of a difference from how the Brits were operating as a colony. So Bakili Maluzi became the first president of Malawi's more free multi-party democracy in 1994. And this multi-party democracy has stood since 1994 all the way to the present day. But Malawi continues to face extreme poverty. It has serious problems with food shortages during their dry seasons as they can't grow food. But progress is being made in human rights and equity among all people of Malawi. So some political geography of Malawi. So it borders Zambia, Mozambique, and Tanzania, sorry. Um, and there's a border dispute because Tanzania claims to control the eastern half of Lake Malawi, and in fact, they still call it Lake Nyasa in Tanzania because they believe that it is divided between multiple countries, whereas Malawi believes they control the whole lake. And that's been a problem for many years. So Malawi is a very elongated state. It basically just runs down the western coast of Lake Malawi, and it's much smaller than all of its neighbors as it's a very skinny, elongated state. So Malawi is split into 3 regions as far as distribution of power, and each of these regions is split into 7 to 9 districts, so there's 28 districts in total. So Malawi has a unitary state presidency, which means that the central government has pretty much all of the authority. There are 2 main political parties that are in power in Malawi, and those are the Malawi Congress Party and the Alliance for Democracy. And these oppose each other similarly to Republicans and Democrats oppose each other in the United States. So currently, President Chikwera of the Malawi Congress Party is the president. And so with that unitary state presidency system, he has monarch-like power over Malawi. So the UN helped Malawi transition into a multi-party democracy in 1964, and ever since that intervention, Malawi has been able to remain a member of the United Nations. As far as physical geography, Malawi is a little over 900 miles south of the equator and 130 miles west of the Indian Ocean, and it is considered a part of sub-Saharan Africa. Its coordinates are listed there. So Malawi has a dry season from May to October, and it's about 55 degrees during that time period, and an about 90-degree Fahrenheit wet season from November to April. So as I was talking about with the food shortages, Malawi has a very ranging climate that presents a lot of problems for the people that live there. An important landmark is, of course, Lake Malawi, which is the 3rd largest lake in Africa, and it's over 700,000 acres, and it's one of the deepest lakes in the whole world. Mount Malanje is an Inselberg mountain with the highest elevation in the country at over 9,000 feet, and it's nicknamed the African Island in the Sky. So some human geography of Malawi. So Malawi has a mixed economy, meaning partially operates under a controlled market and partially under a free market. So it's very agriculturally heavy, and so most of its economic production comes from exporting tobacco, tea, and sugar. Its GDP per capita has doubled since 2000, but is still at $645. And almost everyone in Malawi is employed by agriculture, over 80% of their citizens. English is the official language of Malawi, but over 57% of Malawians speak Chiwa. 4/5 of Malawians are Christians due to, as I said, the British enforcing Christianity when Malawi was a colonized protectorate. The other fifth are people of lineage that have moved to the area post-colonialism, and they practice mainly Islam. Reggae and jazz, sung in the Chiwan language, are the most popular forms of music in Malawi. So, and we'll talk more about this later, but Malawi is having huge problems with diseases as of now. So they were in the top 10 countries internationally for effects of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. They also have problems with parasitic worms that cause schistosomiasis, and there's currently a cholera outbreak, which we'll talk about more later. So here's a population pyramid of Malawi, and it shows two main things. So it does indicate that the population is growing steadily as the newer age ranges are getting larger and larger. But it does show that Malawi has a very low life expectancy, as of course you can see that many people are not living past 60, as shown in this population pyramid. This is good for the dependency ratio, but obviously it indicates poor trends about the healthcare system. So some sites to visit in Malawi would be Lwande National Park, which is 211 square miles of protected forest and plains, including the Shire River. And this is one of the best places in Africa to see elephants and black rhinos. Lilongwe is the capital of Malawi and has about 1 million citizens. There, I would see a Malawian history museum. There's a wildlife reserve and center, and lots of beautiful architecture. Lake Malawi National Park is another place to see. It's 36 square miles of protected land on the Cape Maclear Peninsula. So that would, of course, be a great place to visit because it has rocky islands, beautiful sandy beaches, and crystal clear water. So a current event in Malawi is the deadly cholera outbreak that's currently occurring. So the Vibrio cholerae bacteria is spreading rampantly through southern sub-Saharan Africa. So since 2022, in 7 different countries, there have been over 188,000 cases of this disease, and that includes Malawi and each of its neighbors. So there have been 4,100 or more deaths reported thus far, and the pace of fatality is rapidly increasing because hospital supplies are dwindling even further as this outbreak lasts longer and longer. Malawi specifically has had 59,000 cases, and this is the largest outbreak ever recorded in Malawi by a wide margin. And some reasons this outbreak has been so bad and has lasted so long is because there's common, regular, and unregulated border movement. And poor sewage systems in Malawi are contaminating drinking water, allowing this disease to spread that way.